If you don't mind, can you tell me where you were and how you found out when Suge and Tupac were shot, and then obviously later when Tupac passed away?
Yeah. Oh, I hate reliving this moment. When Tupac was shot, and cause Suge was grazed by a bullet too. Um, I was in LA. That same conversation that I had with him about him wanting to leave the label and why I wasn't letting anybody know that I was a rapper and a singer. That day I told him I had a flight booked to Vegas. I had a room at the Luxor. That was our favorite. That was like the Death Row Records hotel to stay in because it was very new and we felt like king and queens being in there. I told him in that same conversation that I had canceled my flight and my room. And he was like, why? And at the time I didn't know, but I wasn't feeling good. And I found out later that I was pregnant. But when I found out that he and Suge had been shot, I was at home. And Eric B called me. And he was like, I got something to tell you. He said, he said, I got some really bad news. And I was like, what? And he was like, your man's been shot again. In his New York tone, yo, your man's been shot again. And I was like, my man's? And he was like, Tupac, Pocky. I used to call him Pocky. And he was like, Pac, he been shot again. And I was like, he been shot again? How? Why? Like, what happened? Where are you? And he said that they were entouraging on their way to 662. And a car drove up and shot him and made a right turn. And he wasn't the only one got shot. Your man Suge was grazed by a bullet too. And I was like, grazed by a bullet? And he was like, yeah, in the head. In the head, son. Your man's and them been shot. I'm in LA. I'm in shock. But then he says this. I said, well, is everybody okay? He said, man, your man's Pop literally walked himself to the ambulance. So he gonna be all right. And I'm like, okay, but more details. He like, I think you should get to Vegas. You should just come to Vegas. So the next morning after getting that phone call, I jump in the truck. Eric B had a truck that he drove, a big gas Suburban, and Isis and I drove beeline to Vegas. And we were there. So he got shot on Saturday. We got there Sunday night and we were there literally until late Thursday night, early Friday morning. And then Afeni had a meeting with everyone. We kept going to the emergency room and at the hospital every day, and we saw the fans, and Tupac's health just started deteriorating that week. And I was getting sicker and sicker by the day. And all of us, the Outlaws and everybody, like we weren't really eating, we weren't drinking water, we were just kind of hanging out near the ICU, which was close to the emergency room at that hospital in Las Vegas. And, just kind of holding vigils and stuff like that. We just weren't really taking care of ourselves because we just wanted him to get better. And then Thursday, Afeni called a meeting letting us know that the doctors pretty much said that he was going to be brain dead. He had suffered a few heart attacks and a bunch of seizures. And if she kept him alive, that he would have no brain activity, and that she had made the decision to let him go. This was on Thursday. I'll never forget that it was Friday the 13th when she took him off life support. So Thursday, September 12th is when Afeni gave us that speech. And as we became emotional and angry, especially the Outlaws, because, you know, they were really young and full of energy and nobody wanted her to do that. It was almost like he spoke through her and calming us all down and accepting that he wouldn't have wanted to live like that. And that it was important that we made peace with her letting her son go and that we were all going to be okay. And it pretty much calmed everybody down. And that night I went back to the Luxor Hotel and I went to bed and I got up early that Friday morning, September 13th, 1996, and about 4 in the morning. And I left ISIS. I drove back to LA by myself, all the way back to Can-Am Studios. And by the time I made it to the studios, when I pulled in through the alleyway, there were, it was like a visual. There were candles lit and there were pictures of Pac. And I knew then that she had took him off life support. It still hurts. It still hurts to this day. Like, I was so young, it still hurts. And I went home. I didn't even go inside of Can-Am Studios. I didn't even go home, actually, because I was feeling so bad and I had a funny feeling that I might be pregnant. I went to a clinic and I got a pregnancy test. And it was like on the same day a life was taken and a life was given because I found out I was pregnant with little Eric. And then I went home.
Were you able to see Tupac when he was in the hospital or no?
No. I was actually, I was being escorted back. Isis and I were being escorted back to see him. And then there was this guy from the record label. I didn't even know who he was. And like I said before, there were people at the record label that I didn't know because employees at the studio and employees at the record label were different. I think his name was CL. He stopped us for some reason from Afeni. Afeni told Isis and I that it was okay to go back and talk to him. And because that's all you could do. I mean, I think he was in an induced coma because his injuries were so bad so that he could heal. They put him in an induced coma. But, you know, when people are in comas, it's important, they say, that they hear voices of people that they know and love. So Afeni cleared us to go back and see him and talk to him. But this guy, CL, whoever he was a real uptight guy. That's what I remember. He literally jumped in front of Isis like this, me and Isis like this, like, no, y'all can't go back there. So I didn't get to see him that whole week because of that guy. And I think his name was CL. I'm not sure, but there was a man that worked at the record label that stopped us, even though Afeni gave us clearance to go back there and see him.